Booth 9 at the High Noon Diner in downtown Austin was not where you'd expect to find a billionaire. The leather seats were cracked, the coffee was bitter, and the walls had the faint aroma of grease and burnt toast. But every Tuesday at 8 a.m. sharp, Grayson Langford, a 38-year-old tech billionaire turned investor, slid into that booth like it was his throne. He liked the quiet there, liked being anonymous, or at least pretending to be. He wore a Patagonia fleece over a plain t-shirt, jeans, and running shoes that had seen better days. Most of the other patrons just figured he was some out-of-town consultant. Not many recognized the face from Forbes magazine when it was paired with 3-day stubble and a $9.99 breakfast special. But one person always noticed. Riley Monroe, the 27-year-old waitress with a sharp eye and a sharper wit, knew exactly who he was. Not from the magazine. She didn't read that stuff. But she'd seen him once on a business segment while waiting for her shift to start. She remembered thinking, that guy's too young to be that rich. Something's gonna snap someday. They'd built a quiet rapport over the past 6 months. Nothing flirty, nothing weird, just small talk that veered into deeper conversations when the diner was slow. She asked about his views on AI. He asked about her dream of becoming a screenwriter. He never bragged. She never pried. It worked. Until Tuesday last week. That was the first time Grayson brought someone with him. The man was older, loud, with a deep Texas accent and a pinky ring the size of a grape. His name was Clay McConnell, and he talked like a man who owned people. Riley didn't like him. Not because of the way he treated her, though he did snap his fingers for coffee like she was his maid, but because of the way he talked to Grayson. Like Grayson owed him something. Like he controlled him. She didn't say anything that day. Just gave Grayson a longer than usual look when he left. He caught it, raised an eyebrow. She shook her head and smiled, pretending it was nothing. But the next Tuesday, Clay was back. This time, he wasn't just talking business. He was talking about someone named Jensen who wouldn't be a problem after this week. Grayson went quiet. He nodded like he understood, but his hands were clenched beneath the table. That was when Riley snapped. When Clay went to the bathroom, she leaned down and whispered to Grayson, that man? He's not your friend. Be careful. Grayson stared at her for a long second, like he wanted to ask more, but didn't know how. Then he smiled. Not his usual smile. This one was tight. Sad. Thanks, he said. You're probably right. The next day, Riley's shift started late because of a down power line on Lamar Boulevard. She was running behind, cursing traffic, when she pulled into the back lot of the diner and saw something that made her heart jump. A black Rolls-Royce Ghost. Sitting there. Engine idling. Tinted windows. And a man in a suit standing beside it like he was waiting for someone. Before she could even park, the man walked up to her beat-up Corolla, tapped her window, and said 5 words. Miss Monroe, Mr. Langford sent me. Riley's heart raced as she stared up at the suited man through the dusty windshield. He looked like he belonged on Wall Street, not behind a diner in Austin. Early 40s, clean-shaven, crisp gray suit, and a Bluetooth earpiece blinking in his right ear. She cracked the window an inch. Mr. Langford sent you? She asked cautiously. The man nodded. Yes, ma'am. He said you did him a favor yesterday. He'd like to return it. Riley laughed nervously. With a Rolls-Royce. The man didn't laugh. He'd like to speak with you. Privately. If you have time. Riley looked down at her apron, stained with coffee and syrup. Then back at the car. She should have said no. She knew she should say no. But something in her gut said this wasn't just about a thank you. And after everything she overheard at that booth, she wanted answers. Give me 5 minutes, she said. 15 minutes later, Riley sat in the back of the Rolls-Royce, the interior like a spaceship wrapped in cashmere and silence. The suited man, who introduced himself as Ethan Crane, didn't say a word the entire drive. He just tapped on his tablet and adjusted the AC like this was routine. They didn't go far, just 20 minutes west to the edge of the hill country, where the trees got taller and the houses bigger. Eventually, they pulled into the long, winding driveway of a modern mansion overlooking Lake Austin. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Cantilevered decks. The kind of place that looked like a Bond villain's vacation home. Grayson Langford stood waiting on the stone patio, barefoot in jeans and a black Henley, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Riley, he said with a tired smile. Thanks for coming. She stepped out, trying not to gawk. You sent a ghost to pick me up. I figured it was either that or witness protection. He chuckled and handed her a mug. Cinnamon vanilla. No cream. She blinked. You remember how I take my coffee? I remember a lot of things, he said, then turned and walked toward the edge of the patio. Come on. I want to show you something. The lake sparkled below them, glassy and calm. The city felt a world away. Grayson leaned against the railing and exhaled like he hadn't breathed in days. Clay McConnell, he said, without preamble, isn't just a bad friend. He's a fixer. Works for people who don't like to be seen. People with money, but no morals. Years ago, I got into something ugly. A company acquisition that went sideways. Someone disappeared. Clay helped bury it. Riley went cold. You mean like? I don't know what happened to him. I don't want to know. But Clay made it all go away. And in return, I've been in his pocket ever since. Riley stared at him. Why are you telling me this? Because yesterday, when you warned me, it was the first time in years someone saw what was happening and didn't look away. I think I needed that. More than I realized. A silence stretched between them. Then he said, I'm getting out. I've hired a legal team. I'm blowing everything open. But it's going to get messy. Dangerous. Riley swallowed. So what does that have to do with me? Grayson looked at her. I'm serious. You're already involved. Clay saw you. He asked about you. I told him you were just the waitress. And you want to protect me now? No, he said. I want to hire you. That stopped her cold. Hire me? For what? Grayson smiled faintly. To be my personal assistant. Liaison. Shadow. Someone I can trust. I need someone real in my corner. Someone who's not afraid to call me on my bullshit. And you think that's me? I know it's you. Riley stared at him. The view. The car. The job. Everything felt like a movie she wasn't cast in. Then she said, I want $90,000, health benefits, and to keep my Tuesday mornings off. Grayson blinked, then laughed. Deal. But neither of them saw the man in the black SUV, parked down the hill, watching with binoculars. Clay McConnell always kept tabs. Clay McConnell hadn't built his empire by being careless. He was a man who could smell betrayal before the knife was drawn. And as he sat in his armored black SUV, engine idling, watching Grayson Langford and that waitress on the patio, something in his gut turned cold. Riley Monroe, a waitress from a nowhere diner. Sharp eyes, quick tongue. Clay didn't like her the moment she walked up to their table, and now he knew why. She had gotten under Grayson's skin. Zoom in. He barked to his driver, who adjusted the camera mounted discreetly on the dash. The lens caught the two figures clearly, coffee cups in hand, talking like co-conspirators. Jesus Christ, Grayson, Clay muttered. You always did have a soft spot for strays. But he wasn't worried. Not yet. Because Clay didn't need loyalty. He had leverage. Back inside the house, Riley stood in the center of Grayson's sleek glass-walled office, staring at the screens on his wall. He'd just pulled up a file labeled Project Hollow Tree. Is this what got you tangled with Clay? She asked. Grayson nodded. It was supposed to be a rural broadband rollout. High-speed internet for low-income communities. I partnered with a shell company I didn't know he owned. Turned out they were funneling the federal grants into offshore accounts. Then one of the whistleblowers vanished. Jensen, Riley said quietly. Grayson nodded. And you just let it happen? I tried to fix it, but I was already compromised. Clay made sure of that. He has recordings. Emails. If I speak up without a plan, I go to prison. Or worse. Riley paced the room. And now you've got me in the middle of this. That's why I'm giving you an out, Grayson said. Right now? Walk away. I'll wire you 50 grand for your trouble, no questions asked. But if you stay, you're going to see things. Hear things. This isn't just business, Riley. This is blood money. She looked at him hard. I don't care about the money. I care about people like Clay thinking they own the world. Then she reached into her apron and pulled out a napkin. It had a scribbled note in blue ink. Jensen's brother works at Texas Natural Gas. Ask about the offshore permits. Grayson stared at it like it was a map to buried treasure. When did you write this? Last week. After I heard Clay say Jensen wouldn't be a problem. I started digging. Grayson let out a low whistle. You really are dangerous. But before he could say more, Ethan burst in, phone in hand. We have a problem. Clay's lawyer just filed an emergency motion to freeze your assets. What? Grayson stepped forward. On what grounds? Fraud. Misappropriation. Wire fraud linked to Hollow Tree. And he's naming you as the primary architect. Grayson's face darkened. That's not a play, Riley said. That's a declaration of war. Ethan nodded grimly. And there's more. Someone leaked your old emails to a journalist in Dallas. The story's dropping tomorrow. For a long second, nobody spoke. Then Grayson looked at Riley. You still in? She didn't flinch. I'm already in. He turned to Ethan. Call the lawyer. We're going on the offensive. Then he looked back out the window, where the sun was beginning to set behind the hills. There's blood in the water now, he murmured. Let's see who bites first. The headline hit at 6 a.m. sharp. Billionaire behind Hollow Tree scandal linked to missing whistleblower. Exclusive emails expose cover-up. By Jared Kessler, Dallas Morning Ledger. The story went viral before Grayson even rolled out of bed. By the time Riley got to the house, CNN was already camped outside the gate. Ethan was on the phone with 3 different lawyers. Social media exploded. And Clay McConnell? He was silent. That was what worried Grayson the most. Nothing? He asked Ethan as they huddled in the glass-walled conference room. No statement. No denial. No media pushback. It's like he wanted the story out. Riley leaned forward, scrolling the article on her tablet. They didn't mention Clay by name. Not once. It all lands on you. Of course it does, Grayson muttered. That's the point. The article included 3 damning emails. Grayson's name was on each one. They made it seem like he had knowingly participated in the funding scheme, coordinated with offshore banks, and silenced whistleblowers. But Grayson swore they were taken out of context. They are real emails, he admitted. But they've been edited. Fragments twisted into a narrative. Doesn't matter, Ethan said. Public court of opinion won't wait for a judge. Riley stood up and walked to the whiteboard where Grayson had scrawled the key names. Jensen, Clay, Hollow Tree, Texas Natural Gas, and now, Kessler, the journalist. What if we go around Clay, she said suddenly. What if we give Kessler the whole story? Uncut. The part that implicates Clay. The part that explains why you stayed silent. Ethan frowned. That's dangerous. We have no proof. Not yet, Riley said. But maybe I can get some. Grayson looked at her, cautious. You want to talk to Jensen's brother? Exactly. If he knows anything about those offshore permits, or if he has anything from Jensen before he disappeared, it could blow this open. I'll go with you, Grayson said. No, Riley replied. You're too high profile now. If Clay is watching us, and I know he is, he'll expect you to make a move. But he's not watching me yet. Grayson hesitated, then finally nodded. Ethan will stay here. We'll monitor communications. Be careful, Riley. As she grabbed her jacket and left through the back entrance, the team inside turned back to the whiteboard. But while they planned, someone else was already moving. Clay McConnell's private jet touched down in Austin just after noon. No fanfare. No motorcade. Just a blacked-out Chevy Suburban and 2 men with cold eyes. Inside the car, Clay lit a cigar and smiled thinly. She's smarter than I thought, he said. Langford always did fall for the clever ones. What do you want us to do about her? Asked one of the men. Clay looked out the window at the sun-drenched skyline. Nothing. Not yet. Let the girl dig. Let her feel important. You know what they say about moths and flames. He took a long drag and exhaled slowly. When she gets close enough, we burn her too. Meanwhile, an hour outside of Houston, Riley knocked on the door of a modest ranch house with fading blue shutters and a rusted mailbox. A man in his 40s opened it, tired eyes, oil stains on his jeans, and a faint resemblance to the photo she'd seen online. Are you Ben Jensen? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Then who's asking? My name's Riley Monroe. I work with Grayson Langford. Your brother tried to warn him, and I think you still can. Ben looked her over for a long, quiet moment. Then he opened the door wider. Come in, he said. But what you're about to hear, you can't unhear. The house smelled like gasoline and fried chicken. Ben Jensen led Riley into a dim living room with a sagging couch and boxes stacked against the walls. The television played on mute in the corner, news coverage of Grayson Langford's scandal looping silently. I didn't think anyone would ever come, Ben said as he settled into a worn recliner. I tried to reach people back when my brother vanished. Nobody listened. Not the cops. Not the press. Not even the goddamn FBI. Riley sat across from him, notebook in hand. I'm here now. Ben stared at her, then got up and walked to the back of the room. From behind a false panel in an old bookcase, he pulled out a thick, yellowed envelope. My brother gave me this 3 days before he disappeared, he said. Told me to keep it hidden. Said if anything happened to him, someone would come looking eventually. He handed her the envelope. Riley opened it slowly. Inside were photocopies of internal memos, offshore permit applications, audio transcripts of meetings with initials marked C.M., and at the bottom, a USB stick. I haven't opened that, Ben said. No computer I trust enough. Riley stared at the documents. They were damning. Clay McConnell's name wasn't spelled out, but it was all there in black and white. Enough to burn the entire Hollow Tree project to ash. Enough to bury Clay. Why didn't you go public? Riley asked. Ben looked down. Because the day after he disappeared, someone put a dead rabbit in my mailbox. No note. No one around. Just that. 2 days later, I got followed for a week straight. Black truck, no plates. After that, I stopped asking questions. Riley clenched the envelope tighter. We're not going to stop, she said. I promise you. This is the start. Ben nodded slowly. You'd better move fast. That USB stick? Jensen said it had audio. Names, times, even coordinates. If that's true, Clay's not just scared. He's desperate. Back in Austin, Grayson paced his glass office, clutching a tumbler of untouched scotch. Ethan stood by the screen, watching the markets. They're shorting my companies, Ethan said. 4 hedge funds. Coordinated. They want to bankrupt you before you can speak. They want silence, Grayson said. They want me humiliated, powerless, erased. Then we better give them the opposite, Ethan replied. Just then, Riley called. I've got it, she said breathlessly. Proof. Jensen's brother had everything. I'm coming back now. You have the flash drive? Yeah, with me. But across the street from Ben's house, a long-lens camera clicked quietly from the window of a rented van. A man inside, dressed like a cable technician, spoke into a phone. She's got the files, he said. Should I take her? On the other end, Clay's voice was low and calm. Not yet. Let her deliver it. Then we burn them both. As Riley drove back toward Austin, she didn't notice the black SUV that merged behind her on Highway 290. Not right away, but 10 minutes later, just outside Bastrop, her rearview mirror lit up with headlights that hadn't fallen back once. Her fingers tensed on the wheel. She pressed the gas. The SUV followed. The Texas sun was dropping low, washing the highway in gold, but Riley had no time to admire it. Her eyes were locked on the rearview mirror, where the black SUV kept its quiet pursuit. 10 car lengths behind. Never speeding. Never falling back. Just there. Like a shadow that had finally decided to make itself known. She reached for her phone to call Grayson, but before she could unlock it, the SUV surged forward. Too fast. Too close. They weren't just following her anymore. They were making their move. Riley slammed her foot on the gas pedal. The Corolla whined in protest, rattling like it was about to fall apart, but it picked up speed. She swerved onto the frontage road, tires screeching, and flew past an abandoned gas station and a boarded-up Dairy Queen. Her heart pounded. The envelope with the files sat on the passenger seat, trembling with each bump in the road. She threw it into the glove compartment and locked it, just as the SUV clipped her rear bumper. She lost control for a split second, then regained it. She saw an upcoming turn and took it sharp, veering down a narrow service road that led into a thicket of pine trees. The SUV followed. No, no, no. Come on, she muttered. This road wasn't paved. It was gravel, loose and wild. Her tires fishtailed, and branches slapped against her windshield as she barreled deeper into the woods. The SUV backed off slightly, trying not to flip, but it was still there. Then, up ahead, a clearing, and a single structure, a rotting barn, roof partially collapsed. Riley made a split-second decision. She yanked the wheel and skidded to a stop behind the barn, killed the engine, and leapt out of the car with the USB stick in her pocket. She bolted into the trees, heart pounding, crunching leaves beneath her feet. Behind her, the SUV stopped. Doors opened. Footsteps. Voices. She's on foot, someone shouted. Fan out. She crouched low, ducked behind a fallen log, and pulled out her phone again. This time, she got through. Grayson, she whispered. I'm being followed. I've got the files, but I had to ditch the car near Bastrop. I don't know how many there are. Where are you exactly? Grayson's voice was urgent. Near a barn. 10 minutes past mile marker 204. I'm going to try to. A twig snapped behind her. She froze. Too late. A man grabbed her from behind, yanking her up by the arm. Got her. But Riley wasn't helpless. She twisted, elbowed him hard in the ribs, and broke free, just long enough to throw the USB stick into a nearby storm drain before he tackled her to the ground. "You little. Go ahead and search me," she spat. "You won't find it." He stared at her, then radioed in. She dumped the drive. "We need backup." By the time Grayson and Ethan arrived with 2 security contractors, the scene was deserted. Riley's car was gone, the barn empty. Only tire tracks and broken branches remained. But 20 feet into the woods, hidden beneath a fallen pine branch, they found her phone. And Grayson saw what she'd typed in her notes before she was taken. "Clay wants the USB. If I disappear, check the Bastrop storm drains." Riley Monroe was gone, and the war had just turned personal. It had been 14 hours since Riley vanished. Grayson hadn't slept. Neither had Ethan. The lake house had become a war room. Blueprints of Bastrop's storm drain system were spread across the marble table, maps on monitors, satellite images pulled from private defense contractors Grayson once invested in. "She's somewhere underground," Ethan said. "She wouldn't just drop the drive unless she had no time." "That drain she marked? It connects to a maintenance tunnel 2 miles east. Leads to an old water treatment plant that shut down in 2004. "Then that's where we start," Grayson said. He holstered the sidearm he hadn't used in years, grabbed 2 flashlights, and headed for the car. Meanwhile, Riley sat in the dark. Her wrists were zip-tied. Her mouth tasted like copper. The room smelled like mildew and gasoline. A single bulb flickered overhead, swaying from a wire like a pendulum of doom. She was in a holding room. That much she could guess. Cement floor, metal chair, a security camera in the corner. Across from her sat a man with slicked-back hair and a Rolex that flashed every time he moved. "You know," he said calmly, "Clay didn't want you hurt. I vouched for you. Said you were just a girl with diner dreams." Riley spat blood onto the floor. "Then let me go." He smiled. "Can't do that now. You saw too much. Heard too much. And the drive? That's a problem." Riley didn't say a word, but she didn't need to. He leaned in closer. "Where is it?" She gave him a slow, deliberate smile. "Swallowed it." He laughed and sat back. "You've got balls, I'll give you that." But then, something changed in his expression. He pressed his earpiece and frowned. "They're here," he muttered. Above ground, Grayson and Ethan crouched at the storm drain, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Grayson crawled in first, mud soaking his jeans, adrenaline pushing him forward. "She's close," he whispered. They passed old spray paint, broken beer bottles, even a mummified raccoon. Then, a glint. Grayson reached down and pulled out the USB stick, now partially buried in silt. He wiped it off and tucked it into a waterproof pouch. "We've got it," he said. But Ethan raised a hand. Footsteps. Voices. Coming from deeper inside. "They're searching too," Ethan said. Grayson's jaw tightened. "Then let's find her first." Back in the holding room, the man was growing impatient. "Last chance," he said. "Where's the backup?" Riley tilted her head. "What backup?" He stood up. "The reporter. Jared Kessler. He got a copy of the leak. You were dumb enough to think he was on your side?" Riley's heart skipped. "He what?" The man smirked. "Clay owns him. Has for years. The article? All part of the trap. Designed to isolate Langford, make him vulnerable. And now, it's your turn." He pulled out a syringe from a metal case. But before he could take a step, boom, an explosion rocked the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sirens screamed. "Move." Someone shouted from outside the room. And then Grayson Langford burst through the door like a hurricane in human form, gun drawn, eyes wild. "Step away from her," he growled. The man spun, but Ethan was behind him, tackling him to the ground. Grayson rushed to Riley, cutting her restraints with a pocket knife. "You okay?" She blinked at him. "Took you long enough." They ran. Outside, police cruisers lit up the woods. Grayson had called in every favor he had left: private security, 2 honest detectives, even a sympathetic state senator. The safe house was raided. 3 arrests were made. Clay McConnell was not one of them. But they had the USB stick. And Riley was safe. That night, as they sat together on the rooftop of Grayson's downtown condo, overlooking the Austin skyline, Riley finally let herself breathe. "I thought I was going to die down there," she said softly. "You didn't," Grayson said. "You outsmarted them. You saved us both." She looked at him. "What now?" He held up the USB. "Now we go to war with the truth." 2 days later, the Langford residence no longer resembled a home. It had transformed into a fortress of legal firepower and digital warfare. Grayson stood at the head of the long oak table in his private library, flanked by 3 attorneys, a cybersecurity expert, a retired FBI agent, and, at the far end, Riley Monroe, now dressed in a sharp navy blazer instead of a waitress uniform. On the center screen, the decrypted contents of the USB drive. Riley had insisted on being there for every second. "This isn't just about Clay anymore," Grayson said, his voice like steel. "This is a network, a machine." He pointed to the names scrolling on the screen. Clay McConnell, suspected fixer for energy conglomerates. Frank DeLevin, state comptroller, received bribes tied to HoloTree. Jared Kessler, journalist turned asset, used to plant narratives. Senator Wilcox, Texas official who helped bury whistleblower reports. Each name came with audio clips, bank transfer records, flight logs. Jensen's recordings were the smoking gun. In one file, a voice clearly identified as Clay's could be heard saying, "If Jensen doesn't shut up, we'll shut him down." People disappear all the time. The room went silent after that. Then Grayson looked at Riley. "You were right from the beginning," he said. "They're all in it together. And this drive, this breaks them." "But it's not over," Riley said. "They won't just roll over. They'll come harder now." Grayson nodded. "That's why we go public, strategically. We release enough to protect ourselves, but not everything. We keep control of the narrative." Ethan stepped forward. "We've arranged a live interview. Sunday night. 60 minutes. National spotlight." Grayson looked at Riley. "I want you there. Beside me." She blinked. "Me? Why?" "Because this story started with a waitress warning a billionaire. And people need to see that. They need to see you." Riley hesitated, but then nodded. "All right," she said. "Let's finish this." That night, in a sleek downtown hotel room, Jared Kessler typed furiously on his laptop. He had just received an anonymous email. Subject: "I know what you did." Attached: 3 full audio files, unedited. All from the USB drive. All with his name mentioned. His hands shook. He called Clay. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. Then his email refreshed. Second message: "You can burn Clay. Or we burn you. You have 48 hours. Jared stared at the screen. Sweat pouring. His reputation. His future. His freedom. All now in Riley Monroe's hands. Meanwhile, in a private ranch outside Waco, Clay McConnell poured himself a glass of bourbon and stared at the TV. The news showed a split screen. Grayson Langford announcing a public statement, and Riley Monroe stepping into the spotlight with him. Clay smiled faintly. "She doesn't know," he muttered to himself. "She thinks this ends with a story." He tapped a button on his phone and opened a hidden folder. A live video feed flickered into view. A warehouse. Inside, crates, blueprints, names, and one word stenciled on a steel box. Project Rook. Clay leaned back, eyes cold. "You don't stop a machine by telling stories," he whispered. "You stop it by killing the engineers." The 60 Minutes interview was scheduled for Sunday night. But by Friday afternoon, the whispers of something darker began to echo behind closed doors, something even Grayson hadn't expected. "Project Rook," Ethan said, placing a classified-looking folder on the table. It wasn't just about stealing broadband funds or silencing whistleblowers. This was part of a broader surveillance initiative, unofficial, unsanctioned, and absolutely illegal. Riley leaned over the folder, scanning the diagrams and maps. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "A private intelligence grid," Grayson answered. "Satellite tracking, cell tower pings, behavioral analytics." Clay was building his own version of the NSA, except for corporate clients. Ethan added, and they used HoloTree to disguise it. The towers they were installing in rural areas weren't just for internet. They were for data collection. Real-time metadata scraping. Every text, call, search history within a 50-mile radius. Riley sat back, stunned. "They weren't just laundering money," she said. "They were building a weapon." Grayson nodded grimly. "A weapon they could sell to anyone. Governments, corporations, cartels." And Clay? He had disappeared. Since the Bastrop raid, he'd gone completely off-grid. No financial movements. No phone pings. Like he'd vanished into the shadows he'd built. But Grayson knew better. "He's hiding," he said. "Preparing for something. And he knows we're going to expose him." Riley leaned forward. "Then let's go first. We put Project Rook in the open, force his clients to distance themselves. Once he's isolated, we take him down. That night, Riley sat alone in the guest room of Grayson's penthouse, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She barely recognized herself. Gone was the waitress with the chipped nail polish and diner apron. Now she was at the center of something far bigger, a truth that could reshape the country's understanding of privacy, corruption, and control. But something still gnawed at her. Why hadn't Clay retaliated? Why the silence? Just then, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end was calm, familiar. I see you, Riley. Her blood froze. Clay, you think you've won. That you're going to walk into a TV studio and change the world with your little monologue. But here's what you don't know. She gripped the phone tighter. What? There are 3 bombs under that studio. Each one smart linked to a device in the control room. You talk. People die? Her heart stopped. You're bluffing. Am I? He said. Check the permits. Look at the blueprints. You'll find them. Then ask yourself, how many people are you willing to kill for a truth they'll forget in a week? Then the line went dead. 10 minutes later, Grayson stormed into the room as Riley was packing a duffel bag. We cancel the interview, she said before he could speak. Clay called. He's rigged the building. We can get bomb techs, sweep it. No, she snapped. He wants us to do that. He wants us spooked. He wants chaos. And we're not giving it to him. Grayson stared at her, trying to process. Then what do we do? Riley zipped up the bag. We don't go to the studio. She turned to face him. We bring the truth to him. Sunday morning, a private livestream URL was quietly sent to 20 journalists, 3 senators, and a whistleblower organization in D.C. The subject line was chillingly simple. The truth about Project Rook, if we disappear. Inside the file was everything. Jensen's recordings, Clay's communications, the offshore accounts, the surveillance blueprints. A digital bomb far deadlier than Clay's physical ones. But that wasn't all. Riley included a final message, direct to camera. If you're watching this, we've either succeeded or we're dead. My name is Riley Monroe. I was a waitress. I didn't sign up for this. But I saw something wrong, and I couldn't unsee it. Clay McConnell is a traitor to this country, to its people, to truth, and to decency. He's not just a criminal, he's a system. And systems only fall when everyone pushes. So I'm pushing. Your turn. By 9 p.m., the live stream had gone viral. By 9:02, Clay's face was on every news channel. By 9:10, he'd lost control. And someone inside his own circle made a call to the FBI. The storm didn't roll in with thunder. It came with a search warrant. At 5:42 a.m. Monday morning, a convoy of unmarked SUVs pulled up to a private airstrip outside Waco. The target, a luxury jet registered to CM Holdings, LLC. By 5:47, federal agents had Clay McConnell in handcuffs, barefoot on the tarmac, muttering curses between clenched teeth. It was over, or so the world thought. Back in Austin, Riley watched the news through bleary eyes, curled in a blanket on Grayson's couch. She hadn't slept. Neither had he. The room was littered with coffee cups and empty folders, war trophies from a battle that now felt unreal. He's done, Grayson whispered, reading the breaking alert. They've frozen everything. His shell companies, his bank accounts, even his Cayman assets. And the files? Riley asked. Safe. Copied. Distributed. 3 federal agencies and 2 investigative outlets have them now. This story isn't going away. Riley let out a shaky breath. We made it. Grayson looked at her. No, he said. You made it. 3 weeks later, Riley stood on the steps of the Texas state capitol, speaking to a sea of reporters. The banner above her read, The Monroe Act, National Protections for Corporate Whistleblowers and Data Privacy. What had started as a diner conversation had become legislation. Riley wasn't just a voice now. She was a symbol. Proof that one person could still change everything. She wasn't naive. She knew the machine would rebuild. That there were more Clays hiding in expensive suits and dark corners. But the difference now? They knew she existed. Later that night, as the sun dipped behind the Austin skyline, Grayson and Riley walked the lake trail in silence. I've decided to step back, he said. From all of it. The companies. The boardrooms. The power. She looked at him. What'll you do instead? He smiled faintly. I bought the diner. Riley stopped walking. What? He shrugged. High Noon was going under. I figured. Maybe it deserves a second chance. Just like I got. She laughed, shaking her head. You're unbelievable. Hey, he said. We still need a place for Tuesday mornings. They stood together at the water's edge, the world quieter now, but not silent. Riley pulled a folded napkin from her pocket, the same one she'd scribbled the warning on all those months ago. She handed it to him. Frame that in your fancy new diner, she said. Call it Exhibit A. He took it gently. You sure? She nodded. It's where this all began. And as they stood there, two survivors in a world still rebuilding, the wind shifted, warm and forgiving. The machine hadn't won. This time, the waitress had.